Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Freedom Radio Hour. I'm your host, Adam Cruz, and I'm here with my fantastic co-host right here,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of the Freedom Radio Hour. D-Wild Music and 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan. Mm-hmm. What up, my fabulous, knowledgeable brother?
I'm so excited to see you today. Let's take a moment to let our viewers and our listeners know that the Freedom Radio Hour is here, not only giving you fantastic music, but we're here to be your number one source for music, business, news, and trends from around the globe. Got to start out right because the weather is starting to warm up here in the States, and if you're an artist or a producer or songwriter and you want to get involved with the music business in your local community, take a pen and paper together or get your phone and open those notes because we're going to talk about it. So we have to highlight one of your other many gifts, Mr. Nicholas. One of which is the ability that you have to make huge inroads in the height of the music scene season here in the States. So for you, depending on where you live, that might be at various times during the year. But here in the New York City, New Jersey areas, the summer time is that season for us. It's that heightened time where creatives like you and I tend to make more appearances. Perhaps we perform live more. Perhaps we host more events. Here in the States, we're lucky. For the kind of music that we love, we can enjoy things like outdoor festivals, boat rides, pier parties that are right on the pier overlooking the
beach parties.
Yeah, beachfront parties. So there's a lot to consider in the summertime. And if you're an artist or a creative in the kind of music that we love, house music, and in and around this area, you know Eddie Nicholas's work very, very well. Why? Because you will often see him not only attend many events throughout the year, but especially during the summer months, because that is a time where I notice you get a lot of traction in terms of what you have to do. So you do a lot of things: perform live, host events, cater, create opportunities for others throughout the summer months and throughout the year. So where did you start? That's what I think I want people to know. If you can envision, there's a brand new Eddie Nicholas coming on the scene that is very inspired by you and what you're doing, and perhaps he or she would love to perform on the Lincoln Park stage or at one of the festivals or perhaps host something. What were some of the beginning things that you did to really get noticed?
I started as a volunteer at a lot of the things that I've been involved with. I started as that. A lot of the community things I started as a volunteer. So it all goes back to volunteerism. Yeah.
So you volunteered by being you work backstage or something?
Backstage, whether, again, because I do so many things in the kitchen, helping cater, if it's a show, making sure an artist is where they're supposed to be, or contacting or booking people, reaching out. So it's just a matter of doing what is needed when you are asked to, or just offering what you can do, knowing what you can do and knowing where that you'll fit in, and just making yourself available.
So I think that's a great thing. So the first big takeaway, if you're an artist that is inspired by Eddie Nicholas and what he does throughout the year, especially during the summer months, and you aspire to be in a similar situation as him, well, volunteer. That means all these festivals, by and large, have volunteer meetings on the onset. So get into it early enough so that you can participate and be a volunteer, because volunteerism is like a step stool or steps towards perhaps becoming, in Eddie's case, the co-host of one of the biggest festivals in the area.
And again, it's about community. So you find what you want to do in your community, and once you find that, you make the inroads, and from making the inroads, you then decide, well, what do I want to do?
So that leads me to the second great point. So the first thing Eddie did is to volunteer. The second thing he did is to network with others, which is the community aspect. We're looking in your community. Who are the other Eddie Nicholases in your circle or in your community that you could identify or collaborate with or get some information from? Is that part of what you did? Ooh, let's hold the album nice
we gotta
and close.
Hold the album. Let's put it down.
Okay. But yeah, so I think that's a big takeaway, is the volunteerism and the networking piece. Another thing you did that I think a lot of people don't do enough of is, you met these wonderful people throughout your journey, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't follow up.
Yes, you got to follow up. You got to send that hello, how you doing? you got a plan.
Right.
And especially if you click, you're always going to make an opportunity to meet again.
Yes.
And discuss, future projects or what you're doing, what they're doing. Seeing, oftentimes you may be doing the same thing.
Right.
And in doing the same thing, the meeting of the minds can come together. So it's just a matter of boom.
Yeah, so those three things I love.
Yes.
Volunteerism, use that as a step ladder to get to wherever that is in that festival. Perhaps you want to co-host, you want to be a manager of something, be a part of their board, or whatever you want to do, work for them. A great way to start is to become a volunteer. The second thing is to network. So find the other creatives like you out there. And then the last thing is to follow up.
And again, we can take the word volunteer and match that with internship.
Yes, internship, externship, volunteerism, just giving of your time. And the other thing that I think is important that you do as well is you give of your knowledge. You share with what you've learned, you pass it on to others, which is a very key thing, right?
And then passing on to others when we've been passing on, pass on and bring on.
Yes.
So it's about all of it, the networking, the bringing on. What positive impact can you make in doing what you do?
Right, because that's the lasting impact, right?
Because, when you make an impact, people are going to call you.
Yes.
And that's how I get the many opportunities that I have been afforded. And I'm so grateful.
Yes, I am
so
too.
It's just a matter of due diligence.
Yes, I agree. Well, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to break down more of this music business news and trends, especially all the goings on around new music reports, Spotify, and the like. Keep it locked right here on the Freedom Radio Hour.
91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, DY Music Radio, the Freedom Radio Music Hour.com. A mouthful to say,
I know.
Done.
Come back with us. Singer, songwriter, performer, and host Eddie Nicholas debuts his fantastic new album. Released in conjunction with mixtape sessions and Deck Music imprint, Eddie brings you a 16-track album full of fantastic jams upon jams, perfect for any dance floor. The album includes records like Fall in Love, Goomba, and Reuben. Check out EddieNicholas.com and TrackSource for his brand new LP.
Freedom Radio Hour. Live on Capital Radio 91.6 FM.
What up, y'all, and welcome back to 91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, DY Music Radio, and FreedomRadioMusicHour.com. I'm sitting here with my partner.
Well, I'm Adam Cruz, and I'm delighted that you've joined us again. It's FreedomRadioHour.com.
Didn't I say that?
No, you say Freedom Radio Music Hour.
Well, we do talk about music, news, and everything
Anyway,
else from
thank
around
you so
the
much for
globe.
tuning in. I'm here with my fantastic co-partner right here.
Hey, y'all.
Eddie Nicholas, and we're live on the Freedom Radio Hour, your number one source for music, business, news, and trends from around the gate.
There you go. He said it right.
The gate.
I see. See,
I too make mistakes. Well, I have to talk about it. There's a lot that's going on, and I'm trying to give you a lot of information in a short amount of time. So I think the first thing we need to discuss is what's happening with global music reports. We've talked about the IFPI. That's the International Federation for the Phonographic Industry. These acronyms kill me. But IFPI every year publishes what's called a global music report.
Okay.
Well, a global music report just came out for 2018, and it basically breaks down all the goings on with music consumption and sales for the previous year. So we're discussing 2017 and the following information. So Global Music has said that the music sales has increased yet again by 8.1%. What does that mean? That they now bring in $17.3 billion music does in sales.
So
that was last year, 17.3 billion, and that's up 8%. And so music labels and publishers are so excited because they think that this spells the upward kind of steady growth that they need. And it's also a sharp growth because for the first time, digital income is more than half of that amount that's been brought in, which hasn't happened before. So over the time, you see digital income surpasses physical products like CD and vinyl, and then again it surpasses digital downloads. Now it's become more than half of the entire income of music sales in the world, which is really, really huge. So if you out there thought that perhaps streaming was going to be a sometime thing or a waning thing, it's not going anywhere. I thought there was a few things that were really interesting that you should know about. So besides the fact that music consumption's high, one of the biggest issues still is YouTube's value gap issue. What is that? That's the amount of money that YouTube makes from advertisements versus how much they pay out.
And they claim that they still pay out billions.
Yes, but the fact of the matter is, when you break it down per user, see, YouTube has 5 times or more the amount of base that the others have. Who are
then
the
why
others?
are these people not getting 5 times as more money?
Right. So, and what I mean in math, we're talking last year, $5.7 billion was paid out from these streaming outfits. YouTube paid out 156 million of that. So basically, YouTube saying, wait a minute, IFPI, we paid out more than $1 billion, whatever. But when you think about it, when they have so much higher in terms of the users and a base, that's actually isn't that much per user. The other outfits are paying much higher per user than YouTube does. So all this explains is this value gap, how much YouTube makes an advertisement versus how much they pay the artists for the music that they're making money from.
Well, they claim they don't pay the artists, they pay the
labels and publishers.
Labels
yes,
and publishers.
Correct. But that's royalty bearing income for the artist. So that's a really huge problem, because what you're seeing now is this problem of value gap being ever present, because the more income, the more consumption goes up, the more income is brought in, the more obvious it becomes that YouTube is paying a much lesser amount in royalties than the others. So YouTube's saying, well, back up, hold up. We are talking about the free service now. Spotify and them are all paid subscriptions. By the way, you should know, since we're talking about subscriptions, the total amount of people around the globe who pay for music streaming, 176 million subscribers. That's a lot of subscribers.
Well, I can see why, because a lot of people are about minimalism. Cutting stuff down, having everything on hands. Some of these people's homes you go into, they're so sterile that, it's not about stuff.
Right.
And in CDs, physical records is stuff.
Right.
And people are about, let's compact this. We need everything to be on the go. So yeah.
I think that this is the broader thing, that if you're watching this or listening to this and you're an artist or an enthusiast or a songwriter, producer, be aware that what you're witnessing is a continued devaluation of the music. So while these companies make billions of dollars, they pay artists a fraction of a penny per stream. And what's happening, these global music reports keep saying that they're making more and more and more and more money. And so the question always has to be, I think, where is the artist's money? Where is their portion of all this money that's being made?
To me, it's not going to be fair equity until these artists are actually paid 50% on the dollar.
And I think it has to be transparent, whatever the system is, so that we could see where all of these sources and pockets of income come from, which is a big, big problem. The reason why we can't see that is because a lot of these deals between the streaming outfits and major labels are they sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, so they can't
talk about them.
Any of the but that's the very information we in the music industry and us as independent artists, I argue, should know, because that's the real tea. That's the real truth. Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, we got to break down. There's some crazy effects of Spotify going public and being purchased by Microsoft that I think you should know about. Let's come back right here on the Freedom Radio Hour.
Do we have the word monopoly?
Mixtape Sessions is proud to present singer, songwriter, actor, and Mixtape Sessions recording artist Jacqueline Graham. Produced by DJ and label head Adam Cruz, the Jacqueline plea includes Inside My Head and You Showed Me Your Love. Check out Jacqueline Graham and the Jacqueline EP, available to stream everywhere now. Mixtape Sessions, music for the people.
Freedom Radio Hour.
All right, and we're back, and you're deep in the zone right here on the Freedom Radio Hour. I'm your host, Adam Cruz, and I'm here with my fantastic co-host,
Eddie Nicholas. What up, beautiful people, and welcome back. Let's jump right into it.
Oh, I got to give you the gossip, the bochinche.
Oh, you know I live for that word.
Oh, I love it. So, I have to go back just a little. You know that Spotify, before they went public, they spent quite a bit of time doing two main things. If you remember, we talked about this. The first was they had their CEO go and tout in front of the investors and venture capitalists that the value of Spotify was increasing. It's worth $7 billion. No. It's worth $10 billion. No. Actually, it's worth $20 billion. And they did that over the course of a year to the point that when they got public, there was a perception of their value. They took between the real value and their projected value in the future, put that together, and they
came up with a value.
So Spotify did that, what I call a value campaign. Taking the year to have this campaign that touted anyone who wanted to listen that had any real money, that is, that they were worth all this money, right?
You know, somewhere it sounds like some little pyramid scheme somewhere is buried up.
Well, these are like summits and panel discussions where venture capitalists are invited because they have the money and the means.
Your money.
Yes. So the second thing that Spotify did that we also covered here on the show was that they raised a lot of money by hosting these rounds for venture capitalists to buy and sell their debt. Remember we talked about debt and how basically Spotify took all the debt that they had and allowed these investors and venture capitalists to buy their debt from them and then sell it on. That's a quite tidy business now in terms of buying and selling debt.
It's a $1 billion industry.
Exactly. So by doing those two things, by the time they went public, they were able to do some clever tricks. One is they didn't go through an original traditional IPO. Why? Because they didn't need to raise funds. Why didn't they need to raise funds? Because they cleared up all their debt over the course of that time.
And received money.
Yes, and so they could say we have no debt, which helps a lot. The second thing, like I said, they have been touting how much they're valued. So now, at the time of going public, they at the close of the first day of trading, they were valued at $29.5 billion. So, not to be outdone, you have to realize some very important key things. There were some huge benefactors in the fact that Spotify did so well. The first are others that own shares in Spotify. Remember, we talked about the co-founders having the lion's share of the voting power and the shares. Well, they weren't the only ones that owned shares. The others included our three major labels: Universal Music Group, Sony, and Warner. Those three labels all walked away with various amounts of cash, but they all have at least earned $1 billion from the sale of that, of Spotify becoming public. And as you know now, Spotify was purchased by Microsoft. So it was a very interesting thing. Because Spotify did this direct listing, and it opened an avenue for last minute deals like Microsoft to happen. Evidently through a traditional IPO, it could never happen that way, where a last minute deal could be struck because the way the traditional IPOs are structured. So I'm saying all that to say this: Universal Music Group has been going around talking about that they're getting themselves ready to go public. So now you're starting to see the major label, our three biggest labels, one has touted that they are going public. How do you know? Because in the midst of their summits and panel discussions, they have started to do the same thing. The CEO of Vivendi, who owns Universal, has been going around saying how much Universal Music Group is valued at.
You know what? It just sounds like these folks is just sitting around in these little think tanks thinking about how can we come up to great.
But this is how money at that level is made. So basically, Universal Music Group is taking the time through their CEO of Vivendi called Vicente Bolloré. Giving sales pitches, talking about how much they're worth, right? But the venture capitalists at the time didn't pay any mind to it. Why? Because at the same time that they're announcing that they're going to go public, they're planning to anyway, the CEO, Vicente Bolloré, was arrested.
Vicente Bolloré.
Yeah, he was arrested on allegations of graft. Do you know what graft is?
What is graft?
Political corruption. I didn't know what it meant. I had to look it up. So evidently, he's being alleged. They're alleging that he's been involved with using political figures to gain personally.
Okay. Now I can see how graft comes in.
Yes. So basically, what they did, Vicente Bolloré appointed his son to take over now as the CEO of Vivendi because of what's going on. He needs to step away, obviously, because it's getting too hot. So nobody paid attention to Universal Universal Music Group's initial announcement that they're trying to go public, but now they're paying more attention. So remember we talked about Spotify. They bragged about their value for a while. This is what Universal Music Group is in the process of doing right now. The second thing you should know about Sony Music Group. They having 5% of the shares of Spotify. That was the equivalent of over 10 million shares. They unloaded in the first 24 hours of Spotify going public. Sony sold 50% of their shares. They unloaded it. Boom. Sold it off. And then they saved the other 50%. So, remember I was talking about Spotify going public? They did two things, brag about their value and then raise funds. This is what Sony Corporation is doing right now. Selling off their shares and raising funds. So I wonder...
Of the Spotify shares.
Yes. So I'm thinking that Sony and Universal Music Group together are looking at Spotify going public. Universal Music Group's already making mention that they're going to go public. And I think Sony Music, because Sony Corporation's already publicly traded, but Sony Music, you're going to see inroads in that as well. Warner is going to come right around the bend. Why should we talk about this? Because we are putting art on the stock exchange. Think about it. We are putting art on the stock exchange.
Creativity on the stock exchange.
Because those major labels aren't just those three. Oftentimes, those major labels are also distributors for independent companies like you and I. Offshoots. So they too are being gambled on the stock exchange. So you have what's happening right now is art being placed on the stock exchange and being publicly traded, which I think is spelling disaster. All I keep thinking of the economic crash in the US that happened several years ago. All one thing to the next, some wrong moves. And I argue that part of putting art up like this is going to spell the doom and gloom of music. Because what goes up definitely comes down sometime. That's the way the stock market works. Am I wrong? So I don't know what's going to happen with this, but we need to pay attention. That's all the time we have for today. Definitely make it your business to check out Eddie Nicholas's Do You Want to Dance LP at eddienicholas.com or at any of your favorite streamers out there. He's available everywhere. Also check out DJAdamCruz.com for more of my fantastic music. And also download our free app. That's right. We have a Freedom Radio Hour app for Android and iPhone users. Search us out within Google Play and the App Store. We have all of the episodes, all of our podcasts, and more right at your fingertips. All right? Have a great weekend and a great week ahead. We'll see you next time.
91.6 FM, the Heartbeat of Sudan, D-Wild Music Radio, freedomradiohour.com. Peace and love.
Peace.